Hello, everyone. Welcome to Live with Sara and Tasha. What a beautiful sunny day here in British Columbia. Dry, no rain. We've been waiting for this. But without further ado, I'm Sara Hodson, the founder and CEO at LiveWell, joined by the ever amazing, effervescent, everlasting Tasha McRae.
Why, thank you so much, Sara. I was just thinking before we hopped on today that one of these days we're going to have to switch the order so that I have the opportunity to introduce you and say all these lovely things. If you're new to Sara and Tasha Live, I am Tasha McRae. I am our VP of Brand and Culture here at LiveWell. And together, Sara and I are the original OG clinical exercise physiologists and health coaches at LiveWell Exercise Clinic. And we are so excited that you have taken time out of your busy days to join us. Sara and I host these calls just to share our passion for the power of exercise and behavior change to help you live your life to the fullest. So while our tips are always about how to improve your health is just a gateway to go out and be able to live your life on your terms.
And as usual, at the end of our discussion today, we will stay on for those of you joining us live for a live fireside chat with Tasha and I to answer any questions that you may have. But let's get on to the topic today. Tasha, what are we talking about?
We're talking about tips for keeping your back healthy. And this is really important because let's face it, who at one time or another hasn't suffered from some kind of back pain? And it's incredibly common. And you may not be able to avoid it altogether, but there are steps and tips that you can take in order to help you avoid how frequently that is, or if you have chronic back pain, that might be able to help you get that pain under control. So no surprise to anyone on this call that our first tip is about getting active and exercising. And it's really important to keep our back muscles strong. And this can be really simple exercises that involve core stabilization. And I know we talk about this in clinic a lot. You know, the core isn't just your abdominal muscles. It's also the muscles in your back, your hip. It's everything that kind of stabilizes your spine and pelvis. So core stabilization is super important. In fact, when somebody first starts at LiveWell, the very first exercise card and part of their program is a stage that we call foundations. And this phase of exercise is all about us helping you get your core working properly and getting to those core stabilizing muscles firing and getting stronger so that as you start to do more complicated movements with heavier weight, that you have that good core stabilization to protect your back. So really important to keep our core muscles strong. And again, that's not just about crunches. It's about these movements that really stabilize the trunk. So it's also going to help you have better posture, keep your body in better balance, be a little bit more agile and be able to sort of adjust to the environment as you know, if you have a trip or something like that, and just lower your chance of injury overall. So to keep your back healthy, you gotta keep exercising. That is tip number one.
Love it. And tip number two is really us trying to think about what is something that we spend a lot of our time doing. About a third of our time is spent sleeping. Hopefully a third of our time is sleeping.
Sara, one time I bought a new mattress. And my children, you know how children do, went and told friends of ours what we paid for the mattress. I guess they had overheard this. And my friends seemed to think that this mattress was a lot of money for a mattress. They said, I think you paid more for that darn mattress than you did that used car you bought a few years ago. And I said, I don't spend 8 hours a day in my car.
True, right? But I bet the car, at least for me some days, is a place where I do spend many hours, meaning that actually our seat in the car is actually, not as important as what we're going to talk about here about good sleeping posture. But I often hear from our members people saying, oh, and I didn't really do anything, but my back, it's just out. And through the conversation, they've got a new car, right? And it's simply about the driving, the seat positioning, and that it's a little bit of changing. You think of us using that gas and that brake, and remember the days when we also had the clutch, and maneuvering in a new position. And especially for those people who are commuting to work, this can actually have an impact. But we're going to talk about what we spend a third of our day doing, and that's sleeping, hopefully not driving. And of course, sleep is a time for our body to rest and rejuvenate. But if you think about it, it is a lot of our time, hopefully 6, 7, 8 hours of our day. Therefore, this really should be something that, like Tasha said, we have to really invest in our back health when it comes to the sleeping time, because taking a load off of our spine when we're sleeping is very important. So there's 3 specific sleeping positions: on your side, on your back, on your stomach. If you are someone who is pregnant or has been pregnant, you know that definitely on your stomach is not a current sleeping position that is comfortable or safe. But on your side and on your back. Tash, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, I was a stomach sleeper before I had my kids. And
so
it was
hard,
being
right?
pregnant that kind of got me out of that habit. And what you will hear from Sara in a moment is that was likely a lucky forced change for my back.
Mm-hmm. And even sleeping on your side, if you're pregnant, left for life. So you have to sleep on your left hand side in order to not compress, which it would be sleeping on your right hand side, which is not so good for pregnancy. Okay. Between Tash and I, we have been pregnant 6 times. So we know all of these things. We've been through it many times, but we alternated years. So we were able to really support each other during their times. Back to the main topic. Most of us, of course, do alternate between these sleeping positions throughout the night. But the most important thing is we want to consider maintaining a neutral spine when we are sleeping. And so even if we think about our head and our neck, this is all ways that our spine is connected through the kinetic chain. For most people, the best sleeping position is back sleeping. So placing a pillow under the knees, and if any of you have done this before, you just feel that kind of instant relief, and it just puts your body into a natural neutral spine and sleeping position, and it just relieves again that pressure. This position can also is easier on your hips and your shoulders, and again, sleeping on your back keeps your head and your neck in alignment. If you have a sleeping companion who complains about snoring, this position may not be the best for you, and simply changing positions if you are someone who is snoring, such as sleeping on your side, can be kind of your next best bet. But if you do prefer sleeping on your side, I'm a side sleeper for sure. And I always start sleeping on my left side, don't know why. And then I just flip back and forth. Tash and I have traveled many times together that she knows these patterns of mine. Placing a firm pillow between your knees is honestly the difference between a good sleep and a bad sleep. I cannot sleep without a pillow between my knees ever since I started many years ago. It obviously just helps to kind of open up your knees and to put your hips into alignment, there for your pelvis, there for your spine. Again, this is all about the kinetic chain. And always considering, again, a supportive pillow for your neck. Your neck is the top of your spine. Anything that your neck is doing is impacting that opportunity for a neutral, healthy spine during sleep. The most challenging position is stomach sleeping. And though it may benefit or in fact feel like a good sleeping position for people who have, say, herniated discs or degenerative disc disease, the thing with sleeping on your stomach is, of course, you're usually not sleeping with your head directly into the mattress. So you do have to turn your head left or right. So in order to, I guess, mitigate some of that, consider a very thin pillow so you're not also kind of hyperextending and turning. So a very thin pillow, as well as a small pillow under your pelvis, can actually help to relieve some back pain. So sleeping and back health are very, very connected, especially again, when we think of how much time we spend on the mattress. So buying and investing in a good mattress is very well worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And Sarah, I think you forgot one of the most important benefits of sleeping on your back is that the skin just naturally works with gravity and has a,
Oh,
you don't want to wake up with all of
it's like
those
a
ugly
facelift.
pillow lines
Yeah.
that can lead to sagging and scrunching through the day.
Oh, that's a
Also,
great tip.
it's
I will
also
consider
Tasha's
that.
beauty tip time. But I know when I sleep on my side, I am a back sleeper now, but when I sleep on my side, I tend to not have the pillow between my legs. And therefore I let my front knee sort of travel over. And then what I end up doing is really twisting through my low back. So I'm sleeping on my side here and twisting through the pelvis. So just pay attention that you are sort of making those little adjustments. I think the pillow between your legs when you're sleeping on your side is a really, really great piece of advice. So tip number 3, stand more and sit less. So the majority of us spend a good portion of our day sitting, myself included. And unfortunately, sitting is just not that back friendly of an activity. So especially if you're somebody who tends to slouch and not have great posture at their desk. So the discs in our lower back actually have more load placed on them when we're sitting compared to when we're standing. So long periods of sitting can lead to back pain, and it can also exacerbate existing back pain. So just something to think about. So, and then that's leaning and or slouching forward only puts additional strain on those lumbar discs. So good sitting posture is important, but we also need to think about getting up and moving and not sitting for long periods. And like Sarah said, whether that's in your car or whether it's at your desk or on the couch binging Netflix, we've got to get up and get moving. Mm-hmm. So ensure that you get up and stretch at least once an hour. Getting up and walking and getting the blood flowing again is really important. I know that, when I talk on the phone, I get up from my desk and suddenly I start moving around. Or remember, you can even watch TV from your feet and moving around a little bit. Doesn't mean you have to do the whole show, but at least to be on your feet and keep moving a little bit. If you're at your computer, you may want to invest in a standing desk. I used to have one that was made of cardboard. I somehow lost it in the COVID move to work at home program. And so a new standing desk is on my Christmas list this year, so that I can spend a little bit more time on my feet. I think we've talked before, Sarah, about putting a timer on your computer or something like that, just to ding, remind you, you get into the flow with something. Using commercials when you're watching shows. Does anybody watch commercials anymore, or do we just all Netflix that and it just goes to the next episode? So maybe we need to rely on the timer. But if you are watching cable television and there are commercials, get up during those commercials and get moving. That can be your trigger. We often need a trigger to remind us of a new behavior. So the spine is built to move, and movement is going to provide your discs with the nutrients and help keep your back healthy. So make sure that you are getting up off that chair as often as you can.
And I think we couldn't go through all of our tips without obviously starting with exercise. Good one, Tasha. But ending with just proper lifting technique. Most of us have kind of heard that lift with your legs type of advice. But there's a couple other things that we want to consider. That is a true one, and we'll get to that one at the end. But there are a couple things that we want to consider as we are lifting, because of course, we often can hurt our back when we lift something too heavy. And even often worse than that is lifting something a little bit too heavy and twisting at the same time. So how can we set ourselves up for success? And the first one is we all obviously want to first and foremost avoid that twisting motion. So in order to do that, we want to actually stand with our shoulders and feet facing the object. So basically squaring up to that object that we want to lift to get our shoulders in line with our hips. So really kind of thinking again, we don't want to be lifting something off to the side or off to this side. We are just weaker in those muscles. We're not using muscles that have as much opportunity to help us, and it makes it really hard to use our legs. So squaring up to the object to avoid twisting. That's tip number one here. The second one is lead with your chest. And I know that might sound a little bit odd, but if we think of leading with our chest, or if we think of kind of almost like a rope pulling that our chest is leading, it'll keep our eyes up, and it'll avoid us from doing kind of that hunch over, where then all of a sudden it kind of takes our legs out of it and it puts our back into a very vulnerable lifting position. The next tip is a very basic physics lesson, and it is hold objects close to your body. Obviously, the further away that you hold an object, the more likely you have of twisting and of making it just more difficult for your body. That lever arm, the shorter the lever arm, the more you can actually use the muscles of your legs. And that being our last tip here in lifting objects and heavy items is do use your legs. Squat down to pick up heavy things rather than bending from the waist. Even if you're reaching down to pick up something small, sometimes it's just good to be in the habit, because the worst is when you think something's going to be light and it's not so light, right? And all of a sudden that's when you go, oh, we rarely find ourselves in a position where we think that's really heavy. I'm going to get myself into a weak position in order to lift it just so that I can injure my back. It's often unexpected. Therefore, the more that we practice squaring up to items, holding and leading with our chest and using our legs, we will probably eliminate or at least minimize those times that we do pull our back a little bit. So be aware of your body mechanics. It's very, very essential.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend recently, Sarah, who had a bag of rocks that they were removing, river rocks that they were removing from the back of the truck. And, the classic, like this to move it out of the truck. And probably I did it well there. I pivoted from the feet, but did this and kept the pelvis stable. And it led to a nerve impingement and this and that. And it was weeks and weeks and weeks of recovery and losing feeling in feet and emergency room visits. And right, we take our backs for granted. So being mindful about that lifting is so, so important.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for joining us today. And those are our tips to keep your back healthy and to help you to live well. So we thank you for joining us on Sara and Tasha Live, and we wish you sweat and smiles all week long. Thanks for joining us.